We've got some breaking news to talk about today as Jonathan Taylor has been given permission from the Colts to seek a trade. So we're going to break down everything we know and then talk about some trade destinations because I think there are definitely some teams out there that would be interested in Taylor. I have heard there are teams that have made their done their homework on Taylor, but it would be tough to get a trade done because I'm not quite even sure what Taylor goes for in a trade, and that's definitely going to be a hurdle for teams to get over. But we're going to break it down on today's show, which is why you have to subscribe, because here at Chat Sports, we get you guys the latest NFL news and rumors around the clock. So if you have not subscribed, consider going ahead and doing so. Now, Rapoport was the first one to break the news. The Colts have given their running back, Jonathan Taylor, permission to seek a trade. Several GMs and talent evaluators were informed earlier today that Taylor is available. And I have heard that several teams out there are interested in Jonathan Taylor. Now, according to Stephen Holder, who's got a good pulse on the Colts, he says the Colts are seeking a first-round pick or package of picks that equates to as much in a potential Jonathan Taylor trade. We do not see running backs go for premium picks very much anymore. Christian McCaffrey got dealt to the 49ers last year, and he didn't even go for a first-rounder. And I don't think any GM would pick Jonathan Taylor over Christian McCaffrey. So I don't think the Colts are going to find a first-rounder, but crazier things have happened. Now, some background information. Taylor is entering the final year of his rookie deal, and that's what kind of kickstarted all this, was just the whole hullabaloo over running backs and whether or not they're getting paid and if they're getting underpaid. And Jonathan Taylor was like, well, surely I'll get paid. And Jim Irsay was like, I would quiet down over there. I don't think that's a guaranteed lock. And all of a sudden, we've got some drama. Now, when you look at the highest paid running backs per year, if a trade does happen for Jonathan Taylor, you can probably guess that there will be an extension that follows. I don't think a team would trade a first-rounder for Jonathan Taylor's services for 1 year, maybe two if they put the franchise tag on him, but we saw how that worked with Barkley and Jacobs. One of those guys isn't even with their team currently, so that might not be the wisest path to go down. The problem here, amongst many problems, like who wants to give up a first-round pick for a running back anymore? Is anyone going to give up a first-round pick for a running back? Is the wonderful Jim Irsay said they don't plan to trade Jonathan Taylor. Now, there might be some disconnect between Chris Ballard, the GM, and Jim Irsay, the guy that pays Chris Ballard's checks, but maybe Jim Irsay will ultimately change his mind and give the green light to trade Taylor away. This is a big enough high-profile name that the GM and the head coach would probably have to get permission from the owner to move on from a player like Jonathan Taylor, who just 2 years ago led the NFL in rushing with 1,800 yards and 18 touchdowns. But last year, he ran into injuries for the first time in really his entire football career, and he was limited. Just 11 games. His average went down by a yard. The touchdowns plummeted. He finished with 861 yards. His value is not what it once was. Now, let's get into my top 5 trade destinations, starting with the reigning Super Bowl champs, number 5, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs, in my eyes, make a lot of sense because they don't have that clear-cut dominant back. I know Chiefs fans right now are cursing at me for not recognizing Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco's great. Pacheco was awesome in the postseason and down the stretch last year. But can you really sell Veach and Andy Reid on Pacheco over Jonathan Taylor? All I'm saying is if the Chiefs are looking at their roster and they're like, yeah, we can run it back. I mean, as long as we have Mahomes, we're going to be in Super Bowl contention. But if we really think that Taylor gets us that extra gear to really go on another deep postseason run, and we don't want to take the running back position for granted and just assume Pacheco is going to be a sturdy back all year long, where we've seen Jonathan Taylor rush for 1,800 yards, it might be too tempting to pass on the future of Jonathan Taylor and Patrick Mahomes on the same roster. But pinned comment for today's show is this. Will Jonathan Taylor get dealt before the season begins? This is also a good reason why you don't do your fantasy football drafts this far out, because who knows where Jonathan Taylor will even be playing, and that's going to impact it. But no one gives a shit about your fantasy team. Let me know down below, will JT get dealt before the season starts? Moving on to my 4th trade destination, what about the Washington Commanders? They are not a competitive team in 2023. I don't think they are a running back away from going on some deep postseason run. But I do think they are a running back away from having a good running back, right? The two guys they have on their roster right now, Brian Robinson, who, of course, suffered that gunshot at the start of 2022, bounced back quite nicely from it, 797 yards, but he didn't really look like, and sure, he was coming off a gunshot wound, so that could change this year, but he didn't look like a future franchise back that Jonathan Taylor has shown more than just glimpses of. And then there's Antonio Gibson, who I know the guys in Landover have been wanting to see a bigger step forward from Gibson, and he keeps flirting with just being the backup running back on this team for 2-3 straight seasons at this point. I also know that Riverboat Ron Rivera is desperate, right? If he trots out for another losing season and new ownership is coming in, they might decide, let's get a fresh breath of air. Let's bring a new head coach in. And if Jonathan Taylor is the key to success for Riverboat Ron to going 9-8 in the NFC this year and keeping his job, I am sure Rivera will advocate hard for this trade. Plus, he's more or less the de facto GM in Washington with all of the turbulence going on there. So he could just kind of pull this off by himself. Moving on to our third destination. What about the Buffalo Bills, right? How about the Bills? Because they have been right there on the front lines of potentially making a move, or potentially going on a run, a deep postseason run. But time and time again, they fall just short to the Bengals or the Chiefs. And I look at Buffalo's running back room, and it's got some nice pieces. James Cook, Damian Harris, Latavius Murray. But I don't think any of those guys are real big-time needle movers if you want to take down the Dragons and the Goliaths of the AFC, which is, at the moment, the Bills and the Bengals and the Chiefs. So James Cook has been good so far in training camp and preseason, but how can I stand here and say James Cook, 507 yards last year, over 1,800 yards Jonathan Taylor from just 2 seasons ago? If you're getting a healthy Jonathan Taylor, there is no question that he is better than every single running back on that Buffalo roster. And I think the Bills might just go all in this year, right? It kind of feels like they are walking on a very thin rope of about to have a complete collapse, and not a reboot because you have Josh Allen, but if Stephon Diggs continues to get unhappy and gets grumpy, and this defense gets a little bit older and out of their prime, they might feel like Jonathan Taylor is the last piece of the puzzle, which has been the running back room for the Bills, and they might just go, screw it. Let's go give up a first rounder, and if it gets us a Super Bowl, who cares? Now, before we get on to the rest of my trade destinations, today's show was made possible by our good friends over at BetUS. Go to chatsports.com/bet, enter promo code NFL Daily, and they're going to give you a 125% deposit bonus. So if you think the Bills are going to go get Jonathan Taylor, and that's going to be the thing that pushes them over the edge to win the Super Bowl, well, they're plus 900 odds right now, which means if you were to put $100 down, you'd win 900. Now, if Jonathan Taylor does get moved to the Chiefs, the Bills, or really any of these teams, those odds are surely going to go down. So beat the books, as they like to say right now. Chatsports.com/bet, promo code NFL Daily. Moving on to our second trade destination. What about the Vikings? Like, I get it, Alexander Madison season, but also, come on. No offense to Madison, but I'm going to go Ricky Bobby here and say, with all due respect, and then say something disrespectful. Alexander Madison has filled in nicely for Dalvin Cook throughout his career, but go look at the games that he filled in. They were all against the Lions. Awful run defense. Like, it's hard for me to stand here and go, yeah, I'd rather have Madison than Jonathan Taylor. Now, sure, for what the price is to get Jonathan Taylor, it might not be worth it, but I feel like the Vikings, for a team that won the division last year, have been pedestrian so far this offseason. They haven't really done a whole lot other than lose starters. So maybe they feel, hey, we are the reigning NFC North champs. Let's go get a player like Jonathan Taylor who can help us secure back-to-back titles, something the Vikings have not done in a long time. My number one trade destination makes too much sense. It's the Miami Dolphins. They are desperate for a running back. I was shocked they did not go out and sign Dalvin Cook. Instead, they had to play against Dalvin Cook twice this season. And their rookie running back, Devon Achane from Texas A&M, he suffered a shoulder injury in week 2 of the preseason. Now, the buzz in South Beach is that he should be good to go around the regular season week 1. But we're still talking about a rookie here. Like, why are we about to just hand Devon Achane 1,000 yards in his rookie season? So for that reason, I think the Dolphins, who did their homework on Dalvin Cook, so are clearly interested in the running back market, might go, hey, Dalvin Cook was just a bit too expensive for us. Plus, we kind of think he's cooked a little bit, no pun intended. Meanwhile, Jonathan Taylor is entering the prime of his career, and we still don't really have a sense at running back long term. We've got A-Chain, but he's a rookie. We don't really know what we have in him for sure, and everyone else could be out of this team after this season. So I think Miami makes a ton of sense, especially for how tough and difficult the AFC is right now. They should not hold back whatsoever. And if they think Taylor is the missing piece to that offense and they are going to go overboard and really take down the Bills and win the AFC East, Taylor could be their guy. All right, predictive for me, though, to wrap up the show. Where will Jonathan Taylor play in 2023? I'm going to give you my prediction in just a moment, but I want you all watching to scroll on down and type your prediction in the comments. I'm going to stick with the Colts. Who's giving up a first-round pick for a running back this day and age? I don't think anyone. The Colts don't sound like they want to move on from him without a first-round pick coming back, or at least something close to it. So the fact that Taylor's coming off a down year, he's entering the last year of his rookie contract, so someone's got to pay him. And the Colts want a king's ransom, it sounds like, for him. I don't know any team that's going to check all three of those boxes. So for that reason, I ultimately think no team is going to make a competitive offer for Indianapolis. So I don't know if they keep Taylor hostage, if they try and work things over, but I think at the end of the day, he's going to stay with Indy this season.